Hey YouTube, what's up? It's Big Mama and I'm back again. Yeah, it's story time. So I want to talk about a true story that happened in Houston, Texas in 1993. It involves the tragic death of two teenage girls named Elizabeth Pena and Jennifer Eartman. But before I get into it, I need you all to like, comment, and subscribe. Oh, and if you're feeling generous, hit that Cash App, $forensic88. Now that that's out the way, let's get into it. I titled this story, The Shortcut. The Shortcut, June 25th, 1993, 4 a.m. For no visible reason, Sandy Eartman jumped out of her sleep. She was scared, and her heart started beating really fast. Sandy knew something was wrong, so she went into her daughter's room, but Jennifer wasn't there. And Sandy started to panic because her daughter was very responsible, but she did not call home nor answer her pager the night before. After 6 a.m., Sandy couldn't take it anymore. So when Randy Eartman, her husband, woke up, Sandy told Randy that she didn't hear from Jennifer. Right away, Randy knew something was wrong because Jennifer always follows the rules. And she exceeded her parents' expectations. When Sandy seen how Randy got upset, she lied to her husband and said that Jennifer may have said something about staying the night over a friend's house. She couldn't remember. Sandy did that because she thought maybe Jennifer fell asleep and she didn't want to get Jennifer in trouble with her father. But around 11 a.m., Sandy couldn't hold it in anymore because she knew something was wrong. Sandy said, "Look, I lied to you. I thought she would be home by now. Something is wrong, Randy." Then Randy started to panic because Jennifer has a habit of keeping in touch with her parents. And if she stays at a friend's house, she would always be back home by a certain time to wash up and get her day started. So Randy called Gina Escamilla's house and the Peña's house many times, but no one answered. So he jumped in the car to find his daughter. Randy drove to the Peña's house, started banging on the windows and banging on the door, shouting for Jennifer, hoping someone would answer, but no one came to the door. So Randy drove back home. A few hours later, Gina got home from summer school and heard the voicemails from Randy. So she called him back. And she said the last time she seen Jennifer and Elizabeth was around 10:40 p.m. last night. And they were headed to Elizabeth's house. So Randy said, "Gina, can you please come with me to the Peña's house to help me find them?" So Gina agreed. Sandy stayed home and called all of Jennifer's friends that were in her phone book, but none of them seen Jennifer. Meanwhile, Gina and Randy drove over to the Peña's house. And Gina said, "Hey, Mr. Randy, look, this is Elizabeth's room window." At this moment, Gina was starting to get scared because Randy was banging on Elizabeth's window and yelling like he was crazy. So some of the neighbors came outside to see what was going on, and they told him that the Peñas were at work. Reluctantly, he took Gina back home. Time went past, and he finally talked to Melissa and Adolfo Peña, and they said they hadn't seen the girl since yesterday. And the Peñas thought that their daughter Elizabeth stayed over at the Eartman's house last night. Now all of the parents were in a state of panic, so they called the Houston Police Department, and the HPD said, "Oh, maybe they ran away." But Jennifer never ran away before. Although Elizabeth previously went through a rebellious phase, she changed her life around in a positive way. So they knew something was wrong. Elizabeth's parents went back to the last place that Melissa dropped the girls off. Then they started searching all over to find them. Adolfo thought about which way the girls would have walked home, and surprisingly, he took the shortcut. While looking, he searched high and low, looking all along the railroad tracks, under the bridges, in the bushes, in the woods. He was moving things around so he could find any hidden paths in the woods. He checked everywhere, or at least he thought he did. Meanwhile, Randy Eartman reached out to the news stations and the media, but people ignored him because they only thought that the girls ran away and they didn't even want to talk to him. June 26th, Saturday. Randy put out 3,000 missing persons flyers everywhere. June 27th. At 9 a.m., a man named Gonzalez called Crime Stoppers and said Jennifer and Elizabeth could be found near the woods near White Oak Bayou, which is close to T.C. Jester Boulevard. Then he hung up. When the police went to look in that area, they didn't find anything. So the next day, Gonzalez called again and gave the police a more specific description of where the girls were located, but they still didn't see anything. Monday, June 28th. At 12 noon, Officer Mike Cromwell decided to do the same thing Adolfo did a few days prior. Cromwell parked his car at Gina's apartment complex and started searching the area and the routes that the girls would have taken to get to Elizabeth's house. But he took the route that would go past the area Gonzalez mentioned. He looked high and low but couldn't find the girls. Then he decided to take another route that wasn't searched. While he was searching for the girls, the HPD accompanied him, and the people in the neighborhood decided to join the search party. Meanwhile, Cromwell started looking through the bushes and he saw clothes scattered behind the bushes, and not too far away were 2 dead bodies. He called for backup, and now we have a crime scene. Gina had been worried about her friends. She knew that they didn't run away, and although she had a feeling something was wrong, Gina still sat by the phone waiting to hear from Elizabeth and Jennifer. But instead of them calling, Vanessa Rivera called. They found Jennifer and Elizabeth dead bodies. They're outside your apartment. So Gina ran outside to meet up with Vanessa, and then she ran to the crowd. When Gina and Vanessa looked around, they saw a few people they knew, and then they spotted Sean O'Brien. He was with 2 younger kids. And Sean was yelling at them saying, "Neither one of you are allowed over here anymore until they catch those bastards who did this." And at that time, Gina didn't know Sean, but for some reason that just caught her attention. Then she looked back towards the woods where the police were. And oh my God, this hurt my heart when I saw this clip.
Where's the kid there?
2 hours into the recovery process, the father of a missing 15-year-old girl tore through the crowd gathered at the tracks. The man was visibly and verbally in shock. Police had to physically hold him back to keep him from the bodies.
And you could hear him say, "Does she have blonde hair? Does one of them have blonde hair?" But they told him that they can only identify the bodies by dental records. It was bad. And it didn't help that it was a little over 90 degrees throughout that whole week. The bodies were severely bloated. Both of these corpses had maggots all over them, but one had so many maggots inside of the vaginal area that it looked like her vagina was moving, and they feasted more on the vagina area than any of the other wounds on that girl's body. There's more to it, but I'm just going to get into the story. So now I'm going to talk about what led up to this moment. Listener's discretion is advised. Adolfo and Melissa Peña lived in a nice neighborhood and had 3 children. The oldest child's name was Elizabeth Pena. She was 16 years old, very pretty, and had a good personality. But she wasn't too fond of school. She was more interested in her beauty. For a short period of time, Elizabeth became rebellious and started hanging with the wrong crowd. So, her parents put her in a Catholic school that she later on was expelled from. Being expelled from a Catholic school was a wake-up call for her. So she started to change her life around in a positive way. Elizabeth eventually started attending Waltrip High School in Houston, Texas. And that is where she met Jennifer Eartman. Jennifer Eartman was 14 years old and the daughter of Sandy and Randy Eartman. She was an only child, a daddy's girl, She loved new kids on the block, and she loved swimming. Jennifer was rarely disciplined by her parents. She learned morals early on in life, and she exceeded all of Sandy and Randy's expectations. The girls were best friends, and since they got along so well, and Jennifer had a positive influence over Elizabeth, their parents approved of their friendship and treated the girls like they were sisters. June 24th. At 5 p.m., Randy dropped Jennifer off at Elizabeth's house so they could have fun together. Before getting out of the car, Randy said, "Be home before curfew." Then Jennifer said, "I will, Dad, and I love you." And he said, "I love you too." 5:30 p.m. The girls went outside and they walked to go get some tacos. Then this man drove up behind them and said, "What are you two cute girls doing out here alone?" The girls realized that it was Elizabeth's dad, Adolfo, messing with them. So Elizabeth laughed and she said, "Leave us alone, Dad." Then they all laughed and Adolfo drove off. 6 p.m. 17-year-old Raul Villarreal, 18-year-old Peter Cantu, and 17-year-old Efrain Perez were all at Peter's house drinking beers and talking trash to each other. The boys talked about initiating Raul into the Black and Whites. The Black and Whites was a small gang and Peter was their leader. See, Raul was the new guy and he was introduced to Peter by Efrain. Raul wanted to fit in so bad and he just wanted to be a part of something, so he told Peter that he wanted to join their gang and he will beat everyone up in the gang just to be a part of the Black and Whites. So Peter thought about it and he said, "You know what? I'll let you join under one condition. You have to fight all 7 of us for 5 minutes. And if you fail or if you fall, then you cannot be a part of the Black and Whites." Although Raul was bigger than all of them and he was powerful, Peter didn't care. He just wanted to fight because he had a lot of rage inside of him. Also, he doubted that Raul would stand a chance against all of them for 5 minutes. So he just looked at this initiation as a joke and a way to beat someone up. So after they all agreed to initiation,
Jennifer, anytime her parents would be through, she'd call her like that. Even if they were on the street, she'd say, "Pull over, I need to call my parents to let them know where I'm at."
The 3 teens walked next door to see 18-year-old Jose Merain. They reached Jose's garage. They grabbed more beers and talked to Jose about Raul's initiation. 8 p.m. Melissa Peña drove Elizabeth and Jennifer to Gina Escamilla's house at the Silver Creek apartment complex on West 34th Street. Before leaving the car, Jennifer thanked Miss Peña for the ride, and Elizabeth told her mother she loved her and she would see her later on tonight before curfew. The girls greeted Gina's mother and her little sister, then went into the room to talk about boys, gossip, and just enjoy each other. While this was going on, Sandy paged Jennifer just to check up on her. Then Jennifer used Gina's phone to call her mother.
Anytime her parents would be through, she'd call her like that. Even if they were on the street, she'd say, "Pull over, I need to call my parents to let them know where I'm at."
Let her know that everything was okay. And Jennifer wasn't annoyed or anything because this was a normal thing for them. She always checked in with her parents. Jennifer told her mom everything is fine. They talked for a few. They said they loved each other and then they hung up. 9 p.m. Peter picked up the phone and called his friends Frank and Ramon. He didn't tell them what he had planned for the night. He just expected them to show up. Frank and Ramon were 19-year-old twin brothers who lived next door to Peter. Ramon was the twin who was loyal to Peter, but Frank was not too fond of him. Actually, Frank only hung out with the Black and Whites on this night because something told Frank that his twin brother needed him. 9:15. Peter, Raul, and 14-year-old Venancio Merain, aka Uni, picked up the twins in Peter's pickup truck, with 18-year-old Jose Merain and Efrain following them in Efrain's car. Peter told the twins about Raul's initiation fight. Then they went to go pick up 18-year-old Sean O'Brien. They decided this will all go down near Sean's house. 9:30 p.m. They purchased 4 40-ounce bottles of malt liquor. 9:45 p.m. They went looking for Sean in the Clearbrook apartment complex. 10 p.m. They picked up Sean. Then they all left to go to the playground to drink more beers. 10 p.m. Gina, Jennifer, and Elizabeth decided to go outside, and then they saw another female who they knew and 3 boys. So all the teenagers grouped up, started talking, and one of the boys said, "Hey, come to my apartment complex and let's go swimming. I live in the Spring Hill Apartments," which was also on West 34th Street. And that's not too far from where Gina lived. It was about a 3-minute walk. 5 p.m. All of the teenagers were enjoying their time at the pool. Everyone was getting along. The music was good. There was laughing, and time had flown by before they knew it. 10:05 p.m. Peter told Sean about the initiation fight, and Sean said, "Okay, let's get this started." So they walked past the playground, up through a secret path to a broken gated fence that someone already pulled back so people can get through it. Now this path led them to a wooded area with a creek. Past the creek was the gravel embankment, and on top of that embankment were the railroad tracks. They followed the railroad tracks until they reached a bridge that crossed over White Oak Bayou, which led them to T.C. Jester Park. And all of the Black and Whites gang continued to drink except for Frank. So now it's time for initiation. At first, Raul fought Ramon for 5 minutes. Then he fought Jose for 5 minutes, and he was starting to run out of breath, but he still stood his ground, and they couldn't knock him out. They only exhausted him. So Peter told Frank to jump in, but Frank said, "No, I don't judge people like that. I'm not with the violence." So Peter laughed at him. Then Sean took advantage of Raul's weakness. He punched him a few times and knocked him out before the 5 minutes were up. And although he lost the third fight, they still let him join the Black and Whites gang. And then they celebrated his initiation by continuing to get drunk and rowdy. 10:40 p.m. The girls realized that they only had 20 minutes to get home, so Jennifer could make her 11 p.m. curfew. Jennifer and Elizabeth walked Gina back to her apartment complex, and Gina told them, like, "Hey, y'all, make sure you call me when you get home." And they both said at the same time, "Okay, Mom," and they started laughing. Jennifer suggested that they take the shortcut home through the T.C. Jester Park. 10:45 p.m. The girls took a shortcut towards the train bridge, the same path that the Black and Whites gang took. Elizabeth and Jennifer walked over to Clearbrook Apartments, went through the pullback chain link fence, scooted under it, and followed the familiar path. 10:45 p.m. As the girls were scooting under the broken gate, Frank had a bad feeling about something, but he didn't know exactly what it was. So he pulled his drunk twin brother to the side and said, "Look, something bad is going to happen. We need to leave now." Although their curfew was midnight, he said, "We need to get home immediately." Ramon didn't want to leave, but when he looked at his twin, something told him to listen. The twins said their goodbyes and they started walking away and headed back to the path where they came from, which would lead them all the way back to Sean O'Brien's apartment complex. Then a few minutes later, Jose told his younger brother Uni, "Let's go, I'm going to take you home." Then they started walking down the railroad tracks. Uni was walking a few feet ahead of Jose and Sean, while Peter and Raul was getting up to leave and take the same path to get back to Clearbrook Apartments. So as the twins were walking down the tracks, about to go down the embankment, they saw Elizabeth and Jennifer climbing up the embankment, trying to get onto the railroad tracks. Now, Frank and Ramon were close enough to warn the girls about their drunk friends behind them, but they didn't say anything. The twins just walked down the embankment back to the path they took earlier. Now the twins were at the bottom of the embankment and the girls are at the top of the embankment headed towards the railroad tracks. This is when all the chaos started. As the girls were walking up, they saw Uni, and Uni spotted them and didn't say anything. He just kept walking. The girls walked a few more feet and ran into Jose and Sean. And instead of just ignoring them like the twins and Uni did, Jose started to taunt them, and he grabbed Elizabeth's breasts. When she swatted his hand away, he got mad, grabbed her by the neck, put her in a chokehold, and slammed her to the ground. While this was happening, Frank looked back and saw the boys attack Elizabeth, but he was too afraid to do anything. Then he saw that Jennifer had a chance to get away, but she ran back to help her friend, and the boys attacked her also. But the twins decided not to interfere. They just continued to follow the path that led them to Sean O'Brien's parking lot. Once Frank and Raymond got there, they waited and waited for the black and white gang so they could drive them back home. But it was getting late, so they eventually walked home and didn't tell anybody about what happened. They didn't even send help. And I'm not going to get into every detail that the book gets into, but it was horrible. For about 45 minutes, Uni watched these monsters rape Elizabeth and Jennifer with more than one boy at a time, many times, in many ways. The girls were violated orally, anally, and by double penetration. Elizabeth and Jennifer were being violated several feet away from each other, so while these demons were taking turns, someone would yell switch, and the boys would get off of the girl that they were on, walk over to the opposite side where the other girl was, and give each other high fives when they crossed paths. They were also laughing and cheering each other on. At one point in time, Sean and Jose was on Jennifer, and for some reason, Sean kept hitting Jennifer in the head, and this caused her to bite on Jose's penis. Jose got mad, and he hit her a few times, and he made her nose bleed, but O'Brien kept assaulting her from behind while she was getting beat up by Jose. It was brutal. While this was going on, 14-year-old Uni was getting scared and kept trying to tell his brother Jose, let's go, man, let's get out of here, leave him alone, let's just go. But Jose ignored him and continued with the assault. Then Uni was forced to get in on the action. They forced him to sexually assault Jennifer. Then after a couple minutes went past, Sean pulled Uni off of Jennifer so he could finish with her. After that, Uni just sat on the sideline and he started looking at the night sky while he was listening to the girls beg the boys to stop. By now, this went on for an hour. So after the assault, Joe asked Elizabeth, hey baby, what's your name? What's your number? And Elizabeth cried and said her name was Melissa, which was her mother's name. Then she gave him a bogus number, hoping that they would just let her go. Then Jose started laughing, but Peter wasn't laughing anymore. He got serious, and he told the gang, look, we have to kill him. They know what we look like. They're gonna rat on us. So everybody except for Uni agreed to kill these girls. Sean and Raul dragged Jennifer and took her down the embankment. She was fighting the whole time, but the boys overpowered her. It was easier taking Elizabeth because she was so weak that she just couldn't fight anymore. And her body looked really limp when Peter, Jose, and Efrain dragged her down the embankment. While they dragged the girls away, Uni followed 5 to 10 feet behind everyone. When they finally got to where they were going, Raul made Jennifer get on her knees. He crossed Sean's red nylon belt around her neck and started choking her. But Jennifer put up a fight and she was too strong for him. When Sean saw this, he jumped in to help Raul. So they took the belt, wrapped it around her neck with Sean on one side and Raul on the other side. Then they started pulling together. They made Elizabeth watch as they strangled her friend. When she tried to escape, Peter tackled her, then started kicking her in the face with his steel-toe boots. He knocked out 3 of her front teeth and broke several of her ribs. Then after he was done, Peter and Jose started strangling Elizabeth with the shoelace until she couldn't breathe. At the same time as she took her last breath, Jennifer started gasping for air. When Raul seen this, he said, that bitch won't die. Then he started standing on her neck. Then he got off and Sean stepped on her neck, while the 2 other boys started stomping Elizabeth's face and body to make sure she was really dead. After this, all of the 5 boys started stomping on the girls' faces and bodies. Uni stopped watching a long time ago. He walked away from the scene a little bit and just started looking at the stars. He didn't run home, he didn't get help, nor did he help the girls. 14-year-old Uni waited for it to be over with. When they were done, Peter told Uni, Jose, and Raul to leave and wait for us on the TC Jester Boulevard. Sean, Efrain, and Peter walked back to Sean's parking lot to get their cars. Sean went in the house. Then Efrain and Peter picked up Uni and Raul. Peter gave Uni Jennifer's Disney's Goofy watched and dropped him off home. 12:30 a.m. Friday, June 25th. Jose, Raul, and Efrain walked to Peter's house like they owned the place. They were waiting for Peter to come home. Peter has an older brother named Joe Cantu, and Joe has a wife named Christina. Joe was tired when the boys were knocking on the door, so Christina agreed to answer the door for her brother-in-law, Peter. When she opened the door, Peter was not there. Instead, it was his rowdy friends standing on their porch. She just stood there in shock from all of the blood and bruises the boys had on them. So she was just staring. Christina didn't even invite the boys in. They just invited themselves in and walked past her, then sat in the living room while they waited for Peter. When Joe Cantu heard all of the commotion, he came into the living room and asked the boys what happened. Jose said, "Let's just say we had a lot of fun." Then the boys started laughing. Jose said, "Oh, you'll hear about it on the news, but I'll tell you about it after Efrain takes a bath." So after that, Jose told them the whole story from when they were drinking, the initiation fight, then the part when they assaulted Jennifer and Elizabeth. He started the story off by saying, "Well, we met these two bitches." And then Efrain and Jose were giggling while Jose said, "Yeah, that fat white bitch said, 'Please don't kill me, please don't kill me.'" They laughed and gave each other high fives. Jose had the nerve to brag about how he took Jennifer's virginity. And he was like, "Yeah, and I have her virgin blood all on me. Man, I opened that bitch up." They were making jokes about the different positions they had the girls in. Then Raul started laughing and he said, "Yeah, remember that other girl that gave you her number? Like, yeah, let's do this again. Hey, I'm gonna call the number to see if they found the bodies yet." This was so messed up. About a half hour goes by and Peter came through the door. Put up Elizabeth and Jennifer's jewelry and money amongst the gang. The whole time Joe Cantu and his wife Christina were listening, they tried to hold a straight face, and Christina left out the room a few times to go cry. What they didn't know was last year, Christina was gang raped, and to hear about what happened to these two girls took a toll on her. So after everyone went to sleep, Christina couldn't sleep. She laid in the bed in shock, and although her husband was not a part of the assault, she told reporters, "I just couldn't let him touch me." 2 a.m., June 25th. Sean couldn't sleep, and he called Peter, but Joe answered the phone. Sean said, "Man, I could hear those girls. I could hear them crying. Where's Pete, man?" So Joe talked to Peter, and Peter didn't want to talk. He was still tired, but he told Joe to tell Sean to go back to the crime scene and pick up those beer bottles. And Sean said, "Okay." When Sean went to the TC Jester Park to pick up the beer bottles, he heard someone whisper his name, "Sean, Sean." And I wonder if it was like his guilty conscience or one of the girls like that, they seen him and they were just taking their last breath to call his name. What they found out later was Sean previously killed somebody and it didn't weigh heavy on him, or he didn't hear any voices and he just didn't care. So you would think this murder wouldn't mean anything to him either. So I wonder what that was calling his name. Anyway, Christina talked to her husband, Joe, aka Gonzalez, into calling Crime Stoppers, and the call was traced back to him. So the police went to the Cantu residence and Joe told the detectives everything, and one by one, the Black and Whites gang was arrested. So in the end, the twins and Joe testified against the gang. Uni cooperated with the police and testified against everyone except for his brother Jose. So in Texas, there was a death penalty, but not for an individual who was under 18 at the time of the crime. So Efrain Perez was sentenced to life and he's eligible for parole in 2029. Raul Villarreal was sentenced to life, eligible for parole in 2029. Venancio Merain, aka Uni, was sentenced to 40 years for sexual assault against Jennifer Eartman. Uni was denied parole many times, but he's scheduled to be released in 2034. Sean O'Brien was sentenced to death by lethal injection on July 11, 2006. He was 31. Peter Cantu was charged with capital murder and sentenced to death by lethal injection in 2010. Jose Merai was sentenced to death by lethal injection in 2008. There's a lot more to this story that happened after the men were caught, but I didn't want to focus on that. These guys had some really messed up and checkered past, but I only wanted to point out what happened to Jennifer and Elizabeth. This story was messed up in so many ways, and in the book, it does give you a timeline and a date of everything that was going on. It was like a good versus evil timeline. Throughout the day and night, the girls were just being innocent, doing regular teenage stuff. But every time I mentioned something about the black and white gang, at every time point, they were up to no good. From when they woke up to when they went to sleep. From the beginning to the end. And I feel for those parents because I do not know what I would do if I lose any of my children or my grandchildren. And to know that someone took their life away has to be the most devastating thing you can ever fucking go through as a parent. I have some funny stories that I'm not going to mention now because this isn't the time to mention it, but I had like a few funny stories when I thought something bad happened to my child. It wasn't funny at the time, but it was funny afterwards how it ended up. But when I thought something bad happened to my child, one time I thought my child stopped breathing. That second that I seen my child and I thought she wasn't breathing because her lips were blue and everything, and her face it was just horrible. Like my fucking heart dropped. Like I have never felt anything like that in my entire life. Imagine what Jennifer and Elizabeth's parents and family had to go through. And just to know that somebody took their life, I don't think I can do it. I don't think I could be as strong as those people. I hope I'll go before my children do, but this is life, so it may not happen that way. Man, I don't even want to talk about that anymore because, whew. So anyway, everyone, I just need y'all to tell your family you love them, count your blessings, and do the right thing. I like to thank V. Morales for bringing this story to me, and I hope that I cover everything that she wanted to hear. Thank you, V. And happy birthday to ebook. Also, I like to give a shout out to the Donta Show Network and BGDINO. Y'all go ahead and check them out, and I'll leave the link to their channel in my description. I'm out. Y'all, not much bothers me, stuff like that, but I had to keep editing the clip of Randy just to get it where I wanted to have it at, and that shit hurt my heart to have to keep doing that. And he's saying like, that she had blonde hair, and one of the girls had blonde hair, and let me see the bodies, and I don't mean to be crying right now, but that really touched my heart because damn, I know how I felt when I thought my child was dead, but his child died. She was tortured in the most brutal way. And no matter how much they fight for justice, she's still dead. can't come back from that. And does it even really give you peace? Whew, sorry, y'all, I had a little breakdown. I think because my period about to come on. But anyway, y'all stay tuned in. I'm out.